Alright, so we are downloading these two videos to start working on this ghost scene where we have one person talking to another. In the end, this is kind of what it's going to look like here.
Are we creating a new Premiere file or?
No, we're going to use the same one, just have a separate sequence. Alright, so in the end, and I just want to kind of get the finished project, showing here what it's going to look like. Alright, so in the end we're going to have this scene where it looks like our actors here, our living people, are nice and clear, and our ghost is kind of faded out. Trying to make it look like, you know, they're frozen in time there, kind of. Alright, so let's start this from scratch here. So in your project, or actually, first thing after we download them, we want to import them, right? Colin?
Not letting me download the second video. For some reason, I don't know what to do.
Alright, so we're going to make a bin, and then we're going to import those clips into there. So I'm going to say, I'll double click this, and then I can say File, Import, and I'm going to go and find those two videos. So we have 7131 and 7132. Alright, everybody good so far? So we just have these two clips. Let's start by, let's rename these, alright? So I think my second one is my clean slate, alright? So I'm gonna, I just double clicked it. I can see from my source view that this is my my clean slate from that. And actually, let's go and just drag in our video. Alright, when I play this, I see there's some background noise, which could potentially cause some conflict. Right, hear that background noise? Actually, that's probably my music too, from here. So, maybe we just rename this as background, if that makes life a little bit easier to identify. So I'll just right click, rename, and call it background. And then I'm going to take this and just drag it onto my timeline. Actually, wait, nope, that I only want video. So now I'm going to not drag it from my project panel. I'm going to drag the little icon underneath the source view to my timeline. Okay, Y, source, go to my program. So I'm thinking that since I don't have anything on the timeline, it's not allowing me to do that. So what we can do is just drag the background clip into here. Alright, it's still not showing. Or can I right click it and say new sequence from clip? There we go. Alright, I don't know why that was so difficult. And then what we can do is we can just delete our audio. Alright, so I just selected the A1 layer and I deleted it. Alright, any questions so far on that? So I renamed it to background, that clip. I right clicked it and I said new sequence from clip, and then I removed my audio so that we only have the audio for this portion here. Alright, so now let's start working with our foreground, alright? So Now I'm going to drag, actually, I'm going to double click this because I think I have some extra audio at the beginning. All right, so I'm going to play it.
All right, go ahead.
So yeah, I didn't want that, my voice direction there. So let's move our playhead to 3 seconds, where you can type it in your time code. And how are we going to make it so that we're hiding everything before there? The squiggly line, right? And what is that called? Mark in. All right, so what that's doing, it's hiding everything before there. And now I'm going to drag this to my timeline. All right, so it's only applying what's in there. Now, so what's not so good about when it brought this in? Can you see what happened there, Brianna?
The second video is like in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, it's smaller, right? We could go into some of our editing things, but simply to scale that, I'm going to right click on this layer and say scale to frame size. Evan, did you get yours to be the correct size? Evan, did yours come in at the right size? Or is it smaller? Did yours come in like this where when we dragged it to the layer it was really small in there? So we're going to right click on the clip and say set to frame size or scale to frame size. All right, so now we can kind of test this and see that we have, if I turn off the eyeball here on this top layer, all right, I'm going to see that the background is behind there, right? And they're pretty much lined up there. So look at that, boom. It's like they're just appearing on the stools there. Are they really appearing on the stools?
No.
What's happening? Nick? It just froze on you? That's not nice. So we're just placing one picture over the other, right? Or one video. That background picture doesn't have the people on it. Before the next layer up there does though. So we're gonna add one more layer, but to kind of help think about what's happening here and identify them, I want you to rename this clip. All right, so let's right click on this track here, this layer, and let's rename this. Where is it? Rename. There it is, towards the bottom. And let's call this one Live People, because we're gonna have a ghost. We could call it Dead People, but we'll probably call it Ghost. All right. So now I can see this layer is called Live People. All right, and if I turn on the eyeball, now I can see that they show up there. Questions? Repeats on that? So I dragged the clip over, I resized it, and then I renamed it so that I can identify it when I put on my other one that looks very similar. All right, and actually, before we do the duplicate, we're going to do what's called cropping of this. So save it, and you know what, and I'm going to come around and check everybody before we move on, because this is, so do that, do another save. All right, that looks good, Jason. All right, hold on a second. So did you drag crop over onto your clip? So then you have to go to apply that or fine tune it, go to editing, and then effect control. So we're saying, no, you did a couple times, delete, just to avoid any crossover. Yeah, because the more you have, if you have to figure out where it is, it'll be harder to do that. So now, drag the value to the right, this one up here to the right. Just click and drag on that. Click off it again. Now click on those numbers, the zeros. There, you see how this, as you're dragging it, here we go there. Alright, so crop applied. Drag it onto here. time. A lot of times you can just go back to workspace and switch it like that. Alright, so I don't have anything on the timeline yet. I don't see different icon. It would show up differently if you had a sequence set up. So it should be. Maybe rename this. Maybe that would help you guys. That way you don't keep that and accidentally delete it. So have your background. Unlike it to get rid of the sound. And then this is your actors, right? So 3 seconds in. In. Scale it. Alright, if you got that far, I want you to replace that same clip on top as a new layer and then crop from the other side. Alright, so you're going to crop out the 2 guys on the left and just have the ghost person on the right.
Can I just also remove one of the audio lines?
Yeah, that would probably be good. They'll have some weird overlapping there with that. So once we get that crop applied, let's go like this to hide that side. Alright, so I'll go to the next part where I was saying. Save that. Alright, because what we're going to do next is we're going to lower the opacity on the ghost person layer and just extend your background layer. Good job. Background and that's a live person as well. So on this one, you can apply your crop. So you have to do that the same way we did the first one, but you're going to hide like that way. Good job, man. Evan, you got that? Or you already did it with that? So how come the other people don't see their live people? In the end, we should see them like fully and then the ghost person there. So the ghost layer is going to have the opacity applied, but not black people. Not sure what happened there. Good job, Francisco. Alright, did you get a new layer? So
go into editing, and then effect control. It should still show you all your stuff in there. Oh. What are the different tabs on there? Go to Ghost Scene Practice maybe. So click on this one here. And sequence, double click that. Scroll up here. Weird view of that. Layer. Let me just see the ghost layer. Just click the eyeball next to the live people. Turn it. Good, right. I can extend that. We're gonna do that next. Alright, did anybody, I think there was a couple of people over here, or did you get yours isolated? Just turn off your ghost layer. Find it.
Okay, we're almost there. So, oh, big gap in the recording. Sorry, I didn't press pause if you're watching this. All right, so now we have all these pieces here. Let's start, the first thing, we're going to lower the opacity on our ghost. All right, so if I just select the ghost layer, and in my effects control, I have this value of opacity. All right, so we're going to, as I say, twirl down the layer by just clicking the arrow next to opacity, and now we see an actual value for opacity. And let's go, let's say like 70%, I think is a good value there. Enough that you can still see some detail, but not totally faded out, all right? So that's what we should see now. We have 70% see-through, so we're still seeing a good amount. Did everybody find that, the opacity, and lower that?
How do you see the value again?
Opacity, so click on the layer, your ghost layer, and then under Effect Control, which if you don't see that effect control panel, you can just go up to Window and select it there, or it's kind of grouped in with your editing workspace.
Just can't see the opacity.
Is to make our background extend all the way through, because right now I don't think it does. So I'm going to zoom out on my timeline. What am I doing? There we go. All right, so I'm going to just look at this. So, because it goes from here and then it disappears, right? We see that kind of fading out. I'm also, if you have two audio layers, just delete one of them. If they're kind of grouped together, so if we kind of select them and they highlight together, you can right click and select unlink, and then you can delete it if they're kind of grouped together. All right, I saw two ways of doing this, and it seemed like the easier way worked for me, but not for you all, but I'll go through them needless to say. So for this background layer, I'm going to right click and say add frame hold. So what that should do is basically, we have this extra little square down here, and maybe that was it, AM, they just weren't zoomed in far enough to see that. Because if you're zoomed out, you can't really see it. But if you do zoom in, it basically makes another item in there, and then we can extend this out to make our picture last longer. All right, so now that background stays in there the whole time. All right, if that doesn't work, another way to do this is we can go into here, and in our button editor, we have an option that's called the export frame. So we can drag that onto our toolbar. And now if we press that button, it's basically taking a screenshot of that frame, and then we get an option to import it to the project. And then once we do that, we can just drag that over to our timeline and extend that. Hopefully the frame hold works for you. It's definitely a little bit easier, but it's not super hard to get that otherwise. All right, so I'm going to save that, and I think we'll stop there for today with the demo. Tomorrow we'll talk about titles and credits, maybe a little bit about color correction. Nick? Yeah, so the easier way is to select it. Hopefully this will work. Right click and say add frame hold. Oh, but that didn't. It should create like another image like after it. I don't know why it's not now. But maybe we gotta say, that's really weird. I don't know why it works. All right, so I will show you the other way. I don't know what's happening here that makes it work once but not another time. So what we're going to do then, if that doesn't work, Nick, we're going to go into our button editor. We're going to drag down the camera icon onto our toolbar. And then when you press this, it will ask you to, what you want to name it, what you could. Make sure that you check off this box here that says import into the project. And then you should have an item in your project panel now. It says like background, or it's got a little icon there, which we can then bring to our timeline and just extend out the duration since it's a picture. All right, and then that'll go the whole way through there. So I must have had some opacity change in there somewhere, because it does look a little different. Maybe I even get rid of this video portion and I can just have my picture. Then I have a little more consistency going through there. All right, so we'll continue with that tomorrow. We'll do just one last part with titles and credits. And then hopefully tomorrow you guys can start shooting your scenes. If you do need to, or if you think you're ready today, I guess we could. But I think we should probably spend some time working on scripts or having some dialogue kind of ready. One person was asking, like, what if, do you have to kind of talk in it? And I'm going to say if your characters aren't talking on screen, there should be some kind of narration, like a voiceover. All right, maybe you have somebody talking about what's happening throughout the story. All right, so there should be some audio happening in there. There's going to be, as we talked about, music. Yes, Colin?
Still didn't hear.
All right.
I click that background. Check off that box down there. So they have a copy of that.
Anybody else have problems with this demo? So hopefully that will help you with your projects as far as having a conversation with two people in the same frame.
I mean, if you don't have them on scene at the same time, you don't have to do this, but that does allow you to kind of crop the frame and work with that. All right, so I guess for the rest of today, which we don't have a ton of time, definitely if you have anything to catch up on with your framing of your logo or any other projects, you could work on that. We can start taking pictures also in the studio if you want to get that out of the way, maybe a scary face or a funny face that we can put on our pumpkins. And then I would say, actually, I think the storyboards might be good done in like Google Drawings. So let's see, actually, yeah, this is in our project here. So let's say we're going to make a new Google drawing. Yes, I'll create and share. However, I'm going to say I would like to have some variety of shot angles in here. I'm not going to really go crazy with like the matching shots so much because I know that gets difficult. But I would like to see that you have some variety in shots. All right, so yes, Colin?
Still having trouble because when I did the screenshot for the background, it's taking a screenshot of the ghost scene. So instead of it just being the background, it's
Which clip do you have selected?
I had the background selected. So
Sure, hide those other layers. So your background has other stuff in it.
yeah,
Let's take that layer out and put it back in again.
that's this is what my background. So like so when I put it in that, there's nothing there.
I have seen some weird things happening where it's like doesn't show up in the program for some reason. It ends up being there. Try saving it and restarting from here. Well, you just made some changes there, you can.
Yeah, it just saved 2 minutes ago.
All right. Let's see. What would be best for this planning? I would like to, you know, if nothing else, have like an intro, like kind of the body, and then the conclusion. All right. I think I want you to really focus on that. Leanne?
Do I absolutely have to use Google Drawings?
No.
Thank God.
What would be better, you think?
Literally anything else paper. I hate Google Docs.
Yeah, you could do it in a doc. At first I said it because I'm thinking that like we would have boxes for storyboards and maybe you could sketch stuff, but I don't know if people are really going to do that.
I mean, I can do it on
Yeah.
Procreate or whatever. I don't know.
How about we then say we do a doc? And I want you to use in this, though, kind of your shot angles up here. So like medium, wide, describing the different parts of the scene or how we're going to frame it. And maybe we say, all right, no. We'll do a table in here. So maybe we say we have our intro, and maybe we say put a column to the right. So we have our intro or scene, and we even write it in there like that. So for shot, we're going to say wide, medium, close up, etc. All right. Shot description. So we're going to say location and dialogue. And actually, we'll probably say take this out here. So the intro, kind of the body, which is the main part of the story. And then if we have the closing. All done? Or?
Some of them are working. The target one is
Yeah.
lining up with the audio, and one of the clips in the room here is messed up. It's like one of them is synced to the facts simulation, like his voice. So every time it plays the clip, but the audio is from the facts.
All right, I can probably remove that. All right, this is in that folder. You can, again, if you're working with a partner, you guys can work on this together. I mean, and you can break this up if you need to add, like, kind of different scenes. You could just add a row beneath this. But I think this would be the basics to get this planned. All right, so you are thinking about your introduction to this, kind of the body, which is the main details, like your main story, and the closing as far as what it is. All right, so again, just like our trading cards and our logos, we started with a big general idea, and now we're really narrowing it down to the specifics. You had this idea of what you came up with for in the Google Doc or the slides that we did last week, and now you're really getting specific with your details. If you did a really detailed planning, you can probably copy and paste stuff from that into here. All right, but if maybe it wasn't so specific, then it's going to take a little more thought here to kind of get this worked out. Any questions on this? All right, if you get this done today, I'll give you extra credit for getting it done. Share it with me when you're done. And so that could give you 100 for today. And I should see those two things done in Gmetrics also. We had the practice, the exercise labs, and the set domain 2 post test. All right, so those were the kind of things that we're trying to work on, or should all be done. And then I saw everybody's demonstrations that we got through on Premiere. I know that was probably a little bit nerve-wracking or overwhelming to kind of do this stuff, but I'm hoping that if you had to do it again from the start now, it'd be easier. Hopefully at least you understand the concept of how we created this effect, in that we had really three layers here, right? The background obviously has nobody in it. The ghost layer is just cropped so that we had the ghost person on the right. The other layer is cropped so we just have this portion on the left. And then that way we're able to really isolate what's happening on this layer and making the ghost character see-through. And then in the end, your composite then has them all together. And we could have done the spacing. The boot there on the bottom is a little hazy there. I think we were talking about too, though, the ability to maybe blur this.